Happy Sunday, folks. I'm about ready off to do Sunday things. By the way, this is Jason. I am just here. You've all probably heard before about Donald Trump being compared to Adolf Hitler. And he's trying to become the next Adolf Hitler. What if I told you this is categorically false? I'm not speaking as any sort of a Trump supporter here on this one, but as a pure historian. And all you need to do is take a look at the history of both men to understand that these two things are not the same. And here's why. The first difference to point out is the men that they're surrounded by. Hitler was surrounded by deep fanatics who completely bought his anti-Semitic tropes hook, line, and sinker. They were true believers. You know, they had probably studied the book Mein Kampf up one side and down the other. And here are some of these men. Heinrich Himmler is probably the most important figure of the group because he built the SS. He built them into basically a quasi-military force that fought alongside the Wehrmacht, which is the actual army. The SS was also responsible for constructing the Holocaust and the concentration camps that exterminated millions of Jews. So he had Heinrich Himmler. Hitler also had Joseph Goebbels, who was his propaganda minister, was probably sadly one of the greatest propagandists of all time. You know, he was a fervent, feverish believer. Just watch his speeches sometimes and you'll see what I mean. Goebbels was a complete believer, completely hated the Jews, completely couldn't stand them. Rudolf Hess, his assistant for a short while until he started falling out of favor with the Fuhrer. And of course, he made that famous flight to Scotland, where he was in captivity for the rest of the war. But Hess, a fanatic. Hermann Goering, another one. A true fanatic, a true anti-Semite, a true hater of the Jews. And of course, he created the Luftwaffe, was their Air Force commander, and was responsible for a fair number of atrocities on his own in that role, including some of the civilian bombings in London, for example. Probably being the most vivid example. These are the men that Hitler was surrounded with. Donald Trump doesn't have any of these, or at least hasn't tried to cultivate or get any of them. The other things to look at are the most famous books of the two men. With Hitler, obviously, it was Mein Kampf, which translates to My Struggle, which translates to his hatred of the Jewish people is all spelled out in this book, word for word. His intention to invade the Soviet Union, which happened in 1941, is also spelled out in this book, and his hatred of Bolshevism, his hatred of communism, and his hatred even of Joseph Stalin. All spelled out. What is Donald Trump's most famous book, might you add? Well, Art of the Deal. I've never read Art of the Deal. I'm tempted to do it, but at the same time, I don't think there's any spellings of him promising genocide and expressing any hatred toward a specific race in this book. Now, do I believe that Trump does have some prejudices or even unconscious biases in him? Sure, we all do. We all have unconscious biases. I think it's a very critical part to understanding why people can be prejudiced to begin with is that a lot of them do start as unconscious biases. I think he has some, and do I think he's made Do I think he's the greatest president ever? No. Do I think Trump has made some good decisions? Yeah. The decision to pressure OPEC into producing more oil in order to flood the market and deprive Russia of oil income, I think is a masterstroke. Because if you want to stop the Russian war machine, I think you have to stop the money coming in. And I think is, pressing to get a peaceful solution. This is a silent, non-publicized motion to at least get the ball rolling in that direction. Is to deprive Vladimir Putin of his oil revenue. Now, one decision I think of his that was absolutely stupid was the decision to put $1 million annual fees on H-1B visas. These are legal immigrants, and they are important legal immigrants. And they, as I've mentioned before, the Houston Energy Corridor employs thousands of these, specifically from Venezuela, which has turned the suburb of Katy, Texas, which is my hometown, into a Venezuelan hub. Legal immigrants. Now, not all of Katy's Venezuelan immigrants are legal, but I would say the majority of them are. $1 million for each one of these could cost these companies billions of dollars. And these are companies that are helping build America's energy independence. And these immigrants are helping us do it. So this fee is sheerly stupid. Now, the former CEO of ExxonMobil, Rex Tillerson, after he left the cabinet, famously called Trump an effing idiot or an effing moron. He's probably doing it again, but just without the media this time. Because his former company that he used to be the CEO is going to be spending billions of dollars in these fees to keep their oil exploration talent in place. So yes, I think this decision by Trump is very short-sighted. But I could go through this with every president. With Obamacare, I could go on about how dumb that was. With Barack Obama. I think Obamacare and the ACA was absolutely short-sighted, and the way it became law was horrible. Look up the Cornhusker kickback sometime and you'll see what I'm talking about. To secure the 60th vote in the Senate, the bill exempted Nebraska from having to pay their state contribution to the plan. To secure the 60th vote of then Senator Ben Nelson, a Democrat from Nebraska, which is a set of words that you never hear anymore. This is partially why. But I could go on and on and on. And you're like, yeah, but Jason, Donald Trump is taking dictatorial powers. Well, I got news for you. Again, what if I told you that presidential powers have been increasing for decades now? Through executive orders and all sorts of other maneuvers. The Oval Office has been exercising greater and greater and greater powers with each successive president. I mean, if Trump wanted to end the food stamp block at this point, he could probably issue an executive order if he felt so entitled. But for whatever reason, for reasons that only he can explain, he doesn't. And this is a budgetary item, which is what the executive orders were originally constitutionally created for. So this type of executive order would actually be as intended. But now, no, executive orders have been used by presidents for the last several decades to increasingly take more executive power for the Oval Office. So there is a double helping of what if I told you, basically, what if I told you that Trump is not Adolf Hitler? And what if I told you that executive powers have been increasing for decades through the executive order? I'm off to church, doing my Sunday thing as usual. I will see you all maybe later today, possibly tomorrow. Peace out, homies.